6 a.m., September morning. 3 military officers in dress uniforms stand at a tiny apartment door. Knock. 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 Aliyah Cooper opens the door, exhausted, still in her hospital scrubs from a double shift. "Miss Cooper, we're here about George Fletcher." Aliyah's voice shakes. "George? The old man from the bus stop? Did something happen?" "Ma'am." "We need to talk about what you did for him." Beat. Her face shows confusion, fear. What Aliyah didn't know was that for 6 months, she'd been bringing breakfast to one of America's most decorated intelligence officers. A man the government had forgotten. A man who was about to change her life forever. 6 months earlier, March. Bus stop 47. George Fletcher, 68 years old, sleeping on flattened cardboard outside a closed laundromat. White hair, weathered face, sharp eyes. Aliyah, 22, black, working 2 jobs, rushing to catch her bus. She'd walked past him for 2 weeks. One morning she stopped. "Excuse me, I made too much. You want this?" George stares at the sandwich, then at her. "You need that more than I do, but I'm offering." He takes it with both hands like it's precious. "Thank you, miss. I'm George Fletcher." She pauses. "How do you take your coffee?" His eyebrows lift. "Black's fine." The next morning she brought coffee and a banana. By the end of the week it was routine. 6:15 a.m. Every single day. Peanut butter sandwich, coffee, 10 minutes of conversation before her bus came. Back in my helicopter days, we flew senators to places that don't exist on maps. I worked for a 3-letter agency once. Can't tell you which one. Aliyah figured he was confused. Building himself a past more important than cardboard. She didn't correct him. She just listened. One morning, a businessman deliberately kicked George's blanket into the gutter. Aliyah spun around. "Hey! What's wrong with you?" "He's blocking the sidewalk. That's somebody's grandfather." She helped George wring out the filthy blanket. George said softly, "You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did." He looked at her for a long moment. "You've got a fight in you. That's good. You're gonna need it." By May, Aliyah's life was falling apart. Her studio apartment, 300 square feet. Hot plate, paper-covered counter. Electric bill, past due. Medical debt, in collections. Student loans, deferred. She did the math on her phone. Paycheck minus rent minus bills. $1.90 left for everything. She opened the fridge. 3 eggs. Half a jug of milk, that's it. But on the counter, bread and peanut butter. Enough for another week of sandwiches for George. Her stomach was empty, but she stared at that bread. She could stop. Keep the food for herself. Catch up on bills. But the thought of walking past that bus stop without stopping... Her hands shook as she made 2 sandwiches. She couldn't. Next morning, George split his sandwich in half and handed part back to her. Fair is fair. She turned away so he wouldn't see her crying. Her phone buzzed. Text. Final notice. Electric company. $127 or disconnection in 7 days. Monday morning. George wasn't at the bus stop. Cardboard gone. Belongings gone. For a week, Aliyah searched. Shelters. Hospitals. Nothing. Day 7. She was back at the stop. And there he was. Thinner. Drawn. Fresh surgical scar on his hand. She ran back. "George, where were you?" "Had a spell." "I'm all right now." He pulled out an envelope. Heavy. "If something happens to me, I need you to mail this." "What do you mean?" His voice was firm. "Promise me, Aliyah." "I promise." 2 weeks later, George's thermos slipped from his shaking hands. Coffee spilling everywhere. "Ali." His words came out slurred. His eyes rolled back. Body folded. She caught him. "Somebody call 911. At the hospital, the intake nurse looked at her. "No insurance." "No idea. We'd transfer him to County Overflow. He's a veteran." "Check the VA system." "Do you have proof?" Aliyah's mind raced. "I'm his niece." The computer beeped. The woman's face changed. "There's a match. George Allen Fletcher. Honorable discharge, 2001. Service record is heavily redacted. Almost everything's blacked out." "What does that mean?" She looked at Aliyah differently. "His service was classified. What exactly did your uncle do?" "I don't know." He didn't talk about it. George was transferred to a VA facility. Clean. Safe. Regular meals. He looked better. One visit, George was in bed, writing in a notebook. "My memory's going. Wrote down things that are true. I want you to have this. He handed her the notebook. Names, dates, places, numbers she didn't understand. On her next visit, Aliyah brought him something. A thick navy blanket. George's eyes filled with tears. No one's done this much for me in 20 years. Well, somebody should have. Tuesday, August. 6 a.m. Phone call. He passed peacefully. Heart failure. I'm sorry for your loss. They gave her his belongings. The blue blanket. The notebook. And an envelope addressed to her. Inside, a photograph. George in military uniform. Medals across his chest. Standing with two men in suits. She recognized one, a senator. 3 words on the back, remember the girl? She went home. Opened the sealed envelope he'd given her months ago. A letter inside. To General Victoria Ashford. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I want you to know about Aliyah Cooper. For 6 months, she brought me breakfast every morning. Not because she had to. Because she saw me when everyone looked away. The system forgot me 20 years ago, but she didn't forget. This country took everything I gave and lost me in paperwork. But this girl struggling and broke gave me dignity when I had nothing. She deserves better than what this country gave me. Remember her like she remembered me. George Fletcher, GS-14, retired. Address, Pentagon, Office of the Inspector General. George hadn't been confused. He'd been telling the truth. Post office. Aliyah paid $5.60. Watched the letter disappear into a bin with hundreds of others. She thought no one would read it. Even if they did, no one would care. 2 weeks later. 6 a.m. The knock. Back to the opening scene. General Ashford received his letter. She wants to meet you. Pentagon. Endless corridors. Office of the Inspector General. General Victoria Ashford. 4 stars on her shoulders. Silver hair. Sharp eyes. George Fletcher was one of the finest intelligence officers this country produced. Classified missions. Desert Storm. Kosovo. When he retired, he should have had full benefits. Instead, he fell through the cracks. How? PTSD. Bureaucratic error. By the time we found his file, he'd disappeared. We failed him. She showed the photo. 1998. He'd just saved these men's lives in the Balkans. She met Aliyah's eyes. George's letter wasn't about him. It was about you. He wanted me to remember what you did. I just brought him breakfast. Exactly. You gave him dignity when the system gave nothing. I want you to testify before the Senate. Me? Why would they listen? Because you're the one who did the right thing. Not for recognition. Just because it needed doing. Will you do it? Aliyah thought about George's letter. Remember the girl? Yes, October 12th. The committee room was enormous. Cameras. Press. Senators. General Ashford testified first. We've identified 47 cases like George Fletcher's. We believe there are more. Aliyah's turn. She pushed her written testimony aside. I met George in March. He slept at my bus stop. I brought him breakfast. Sandwich, coffee, nothing fancy. He told me stories about helicopters and missions. I thought he was confused, but I brought him breakfast anyway. Because it didn't matter if the stories were true. He was still a person. Why did you do this for 6 months? Because no one else did. And because he mattered even if the world forgot. A skeptical senator spoke. The VA budget is strained. Are you suggesting taxpayers fund care for every homeless person? The room went quiet. I'm not talking about every homeless person. I'm talking about George Fletcher. A man who flew senators to safety. Who risked his life. You made him a promise when you sent him into danger. I kept my promise with a sandwich. You kept yours with paperwork that buried him. Silence. If we only care when we discover people have medals and files, we've already lost. George wasn't a hero because of his record. He was a hero because even when the world forgot him, he woke up with dignity. He deserved better. And if you need me to prove veterans are worth caring about. I don't know what I'm doing here. General Ashford stood. Effective immediately, we're establishing a task force and allocating $5 million to the George Fletcher Memorial Fund. I'm appointing Miss Cooper as community liaison. Aliyah whispered, What? Ashford smiled. She knows what accountability looks like. 6 months later. Aliyah worked at the VA hospital as a nurse's aide. The fund had served over 2,000 veterans. A young woman sat in the waiting room, struggling with benefits. Come with me. We're going to fix this right now. Why are you helping me? Because somebody taught me small things aren't small. Arlington Cemetery. George's headstone read, Intelligence officer, U.S. Army. Aliyah placed a peanut butter sandwich on the stone. I kept my promise. The same bus stop. Aliyah stood with a teenager from her mentorship program. She handed her a bag. Sandwich. Banana. Water. Someone taught me that small things aren't small. The bus came. As it pulled away, Aliyah looked at the empty sidewalk where George slept. For a moment, she saw him, smiling. Then he was gone. But what he taught her remained. Kindness doesn't need an audience. Fairness doesn't need permission. Text on screen. The George Fletcher Memorial Fund has helped over 2,000 veterans. Small things aren't small.